all of them, they don't talk about building a Palestinian state. All they are talking about is destroying the Israeli state. This is what they are obsessed with. And until this obsession is removed, they will remain running in the same circle. And unfortunately, the main beneficiary from this is the Muslim Brotherhood and radical Islamist organizations. I mean, I can understand when I look back now at my fellow Egyptians and how they are behaving. I can understand where they are coming from, actually. It's a very strong indoctrination against Israel.
So how did you end up changing your mind, or did you? I mean, what made you question maybe these people aren't actually our great immortal enemies?
Oh, thank God. Yes, I changed my mind, of course. I grew up believing all of this. By the way, I thought this is the truth because I didn't see any other truth. Until I was 18 years old, I was an undergraduate student, a freshman student in Cairo, or a fresh woman, like I want to call it. And at that time, it was the time of the second intifada. It was a big deal in the region, as you know, Emily. Like protests everywhere, especially in Arab countries. Like I mean, and ironically, they were tolerated by the regimes then. The regimes that wouldn't allow any type of protesting at all, they would welcome any protests against Israel at that time. So on my campus, there were protests happening every day against Israel. And later on, of course, I learned that the organizers of these protests are the Muslim Brotherhood, which is very interesting given the link between the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, and that they have always been on a mission to whitewash Hamas. And these protests were fueled actually by footage from Al Jazeera, Qatar, which very similar to what we're seeing now happening on American campuses, European campuses, and so it's like a deja vu moment for me, honestly. So I was 18 years old, very, very naive, thinking, believing everything they have told me, and something cool is happening on campus, which is protesters. So I joined the protests. And after about 2 months of participating in these protests, and so something major happened. In one of these protests, the organizers, the Muslim Brotherhood, wanted to make a show. So they decided to burn some flags. They started by burning the Israeli flag, then the American flag, which was really a big question mark for me. I didn't know why they are burning the American flag, you know. And then see how naive I was. I mean, at that time. Then they burned the Egyptian flag. And this for me, exactly, you see how your reaction is? This was my reaction. This was like, something's wrong here. These people cannot be good people and at the same time burn my flag. We grew up learning that the flag should be respected, must not be insulted, and they are burning it. And why they are burning it? For Gaza? I mean, why would I care for Gaza? I care for my country. So questions started to come into my head, and at that moment, it was literally the moment I got out of the ideological box I was stuck into my whole life then. I took a step back and I decided to educate myself about everything happening around me, starting from my own religion, Islam, and how it is different from Islamists, political Islamists and radical Islamists. And then I studied a little bit of Judaism and I learned about the core concepts of Judaism. And honestly, I tell you, I fell in love with Judaism, especially its emphasis on this life, because this is exactly what I believe in. Emphasis on making this life a good place, not waiting for an afterlife, not destroying this life for some afterlife that we don't know how it is going to look like. So I loved this in Judaism, and I embraced this actually as part of my personal ideology until today. And also I educated myself about this big monster that they called Israel, and about the geopolitics of the Middle East. And I came to the conclusion that Israel actually is simply defending itself, defending its existence. And there is no logic behind what's happening against the Jewish people. And this hatred towards them and this strong anti Semitism that, in Arabs don't like to call it anti Semitism under many claims, but it's Jew hatred, clear Jew hatred. And also, it was my first time to learn at that age that there were Egyptian Jews. I didn't know before that there was Egyptian Jews in Egypt. I thought we are only Muslims and Christians and that's all. But then, I mean, this was a great experience for me. Within 1 year after that, I completely changed it from someone who was thinking Israel is the enemy, the Jewish people are the enemies, to someone who decided to dedicate her life to Muslim-Jewish dialogue, Arab-Israeli dialogue, and also studying the geopolitics of the Middle East. And my life changed completely, and I became a different person.
Now, Dalia, you've lived under political Islam, so you know how destructive it can be. Why do you think that there are so many Western academics who keep defending groups like the Muslim Brotherhood as if they're some kind of, I don't know, social justice warriors? And as a follow-up to that, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on the recent U.S. effort to ban the Muslim Brotherhood? I mean, what is the Muslim Brotherhood? What are they all about?
Yeah, so first of all, the Muslim Brotherhood is a very, very dangerous organization that feeds on abusing religion and abusing religious piety among Muslims to gain political power. This is something many people, neither in the West or in the East, by the way, understand. Only a few understand, including some of the Arab countries that designated the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization. This is very important to keep in mind because actually, some claim in the West today one of the main reasons why they are so scared of approaching the Muslim Brotherhood or designating the Muslim Brotherhood or holding them accountable is the fear of being labeled as Islamophobic. But Western countries need to understand that holding the Muslim Brotherhood accountable for what they are doing to destroy their Western civilization and to destroy our world as we know it in order to build their own caliphate system has nothing to do with Islamophobia. On the contrary, they are fighting against Islamophobia and will relieve ordinary Muslims like myself from Islamophobic practices if they end the evil of the Muslim Brotherhood. Islamophobia is real, unfortunately. Okay, it's happening. However, we have to ask ourselves why it's happening and what exactly is Islamophobia. It's happening not because the people just hate the Muslims, just for no reason. There is a reason why it's happening. It's not like anti-Semitism. There is absolutely no comparison between anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. People like to make these comparisons all the time, but there is no comparison. Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, first of all, is about hating the Jews just because they are Jewish, just because they do exist in the world. There is whether they do anything or do nothing, they are hated for what they are. This is anti-Semitism. Islamophobia is not like that. Nobody hates the Muslims for what they are. Nobody hates Muslims for being Muslims. They hate the behavior of some Muslims who are mostly radical Islamists or brainwashed mainstream Muslims in Western countries. And these behaviors range from praying in the middle of the street and preventing people from practicing normal lives under the claim that they are practicing their religion, their prayer in the middle of the street, which is a very, very strange practice. Actually, I don't know how they came up with, up to practicing terrorism against other human beings just because they are not Muslims, which is the practice of, unfortunately, not only of well-known and established terrorist organizations, but also of individuals who think that by killing some Westerners, they are somehow standing up for Islam or standing up for God in a certain way, or encouraging these societies to become Muslims, which is ridiculous. So the hate toward these Muslims, it's not a hate toward these Muslim. Islamophobia is not a hate toward these Muslims. It's a hate toward the practices of radical Islamists who speak in the name of Muslims in Western societies. And this brings us to the question why radical Islamist groups like the Muslim Brotherhood and others have this power to speak in the name of Muslims in Western societies. This has to do with the nature of the practice of Islam itself. Islam is an individual religion. Mostly, like most Muslims consider Islam as it's not, we are not all the time required to pray in groups, to fast in groups or so. It's a very individual religion. As I understand it, it's about your relationship with God. However, radical Islamists did not want this to be the case. They wanted political power. They wanted influence in order to use this influence to infiltrate into the political systems of Western societies. How to do that? By claiming authority over these individual Muslims and introducing themselves as the most knowing and the leaders of these Muslim communities, and thus use the numbers and in the name of these Muslims and in their numbers, they go and approach policymakers in these Western countries and influence them. And this has been the game for so long. And by the way, this is part of a plan written by the early founders of the Muslim Brotherhood in the West. This plan is called the Project, and it has like a follow-up plan to it. It's called the Explanatory Memorandum of the Muslim Brotherhood Plan in North America. And in both documents, they speak about infiltrating the West through exactly dominating Muslim minorities. And guess what is their tool in dominating Muslim minorities and rallying support to their evil ideology in Western societies from among non-Muslims? Guess what it is?
I would guess the universities.
No, the Palestinian cause.
These days, the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it is the Palestinian cause, the so-called Palestinian cause, which means different things to different people. If you say, for someone in the West, when they hear the word the Palestinian cause, they think it is about giving Palestinians rights, about giving them a state or so. But the reality is, for those who are fighting for the Palestinian cause, including Arabs, including the majority of the Muslims who are adopting this, including even the Free Palestine movement we are seeing like all over the West today, all of them, they don't talk about building a Palestinian state. All they are talking about is destroying the Israeli state. This is what they are obsessed with. And until this obsession is removed, they will remain running in the same circle. And unfortunately, the main beneficiary from this is the Muslim Brotherhood and radical Islamist organizations that use this for their advantage, of course.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Gaza. We know that Egypt has kept Gaza at arm's length for decades. And as you know, people love to shout about Israel, but they never seem to ask why Egypt doesn't help Palestinians, even with a 10-foot pole. What is the attitude of Egyptians toward Gazans? I mean, is there more that Egypt should or could be doing?
So yeah, actually, it's so interesting what we see happening among the Egyptian public in particular, because the position of the Egyptian government, I understand what they are doing. They love to play the old game of bringing up the Israeli-Palestinian conflict every time there is a big failure on the domestic level, economic failure or political failure, in order to distract the people and show them that there is a problem on the border. If you try to, for example, rebel against your government or so, this problem will come into Egypt and you yourselves will be in trouble. So I know the game that the government is doing. But the general public, when we look at the general public, I wouldn't say they are having a state of hypocrisy, but actually, I believe it is genuine schizophrenia. It's really schizophrenia. Where it is coming from, one side has to do with the indoctrination they grew up having, from the Nasser era to the Islamist era later on, when the Islamists were the ones responsible or having the bigger influence on the general public. The Palestinian cause remained the main topic. They relied on, or they have been indoctrinated with, you're responsible to fight for your Palestinian brothers and sisters. They are dying. Israel is killing them. You have to save them, and so on. So they grew up believing that they have this responsibility. They have this duty towards the Palestinians somehow. While so ironically, they don't have the same duty towards the Sudanese on our southern border. They don't have the same duties towards the Libyans on our western border, but it's only towards the Palestinians. I don't know why, but this is how we were told. So this is one half of the schizophrenia. The second half of the schizophrenia has to do with the lesson that they have learned over years, that when Palestinians move in masses to any other territory, to any other country, they wreak havoc in this country they move to. This happened with Jordan, this happened with Lebanon, and they know that the Palestinians are troublemakers by nature. They are people who were raised on this idea of martyrdom and victimhood, and they adopt violent resistance as their identity and ideology. It has become their identity, actually. Think about it for a moment. Violent resistance, the use of violence, has become part of their identity, to the extent that a mother would be willing to give away her child to die in the ranks of Hamas, just because she believes she's doing something good by letting him fight against the Jews, who did not hurt her. By the way, these Jews could probably have maybe cured her from diseases, or cured one of her relatives from a disease, or provided her with aid during COVID-19 or whatever, but still, she's on a mission to make babies and send babies to the ranks of Hamas in order to kill the Jews. This is dangerous if being exported to Egypt or exported to any other country. So Egyptians understand that. So they care for their national security, but at the same time, they feel that, we have the duty to protect our Palestinian brothers and sisters, but also our national security. We want to live in peace. We don't want this problem being imported to us. So they are living with this internal conflict all the time. That's why you will see these contradicting positions being taken by the people, the government, and also the military.
Now, when it comes to the Gaza war, I mean, what do you see as a solution, or is there even a solution in your view?
So actually, I'm very much pro what's happening right now. If we look, we have given Gaza is very complicated. Gaza in particular is very like this 360 square kilometers is the most complicated territory on planet Earth. Why? Because there are so many players playing there, and there is no one that has the proper leverage over these players to force them on adopting peace as a solution. So if we wait to expecting that Hamas, a terrorist organization, a designated terrorist organization that has been practicing terrorism since its establishment until today, without shame and without hesitation, it's impossible to expect that this organization just overnight will change and become peaceful and will come to an agreement with Israel. Actually, one of the things that most of the people don't know is that the word ceasefire that Hamas uses freely and claims that they are calling for ceasefire and so on, does not even exist, not in their terminology and not in their ideology. There is nothing in Arabic, by the way, called ceasefire. If you want to translate the word, you need like an entire sentence to translate. Waqf itlaq al-nar, an entire phrase. There is nothing called ceasefire. Why? Because in the Arabic culture and the Islamic culture, there is no ceasefire. And in Hamas ideology, there is no ceasefire. The only thing they know is truce. Truce. Truce, which is hudna, which means basically, let's take a break so we can rearm, regroup, and catch our breath, and then come back and kill you. This is truth. So this is what they are calling for when they say we want to have ceasefire. So Hamas, forget about Hamas. Now, what options are we left with? The Palestinian authorities or Arab countries? Palestinian authorities, we all know, are very corrupt. They are not the solution. They have been involved in terrorism. They have been also supporting terrorism for so long. Their ideology also, although it is on the left side, not an Islamist one, but mostly leftist, but still is centered around the idea of annihilating Israel, of removing Israel from existence. Yes, they are willing to do political maneuver, like from time to time, in order to preserve their seats and so, but actually they don't need it. They don't need to live in peace with Israel. And we saw the Oslo agreement. I mean, it was a historical moment, a great moment for first establishing a Palestinian state, second living in peace and bringing the Middle East to peace. And who broke it? Not Israel, but the Palestinians. The same Palestinian Authority. It was Yasser Arafat then. These same people. So we learned from history that the Palestinian Authority is not the solution. So neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority. Now who's left? The Arabs. The Arabs don't want to be involved. They like to do all types of rhetoric about supporting a Palestinian cause, about supporting a Palestinian state, about even supporting peace with Israel and all of that. They do rhetoric, very well written rhetoric, but nothing, but no action, nothing on the ground, nothing is happening in reality. When you call for them to go into Gaza, for example, send some, train some troops into, not troops, sorry, train some political leaders from among the Gazans who are against Hamas and so, they say, no, we are not going to enter Israel on the backs of Israeli tanks. Okay, fine. What are you, like, they don't want to be involved, long story short. So the Arabs, I don't expect they can do much inside Gaza. So the only solution we are left with is what's happening right now. That Israel is going to take over Gaza for a while, release the hostages, help build a new government inside Gaza. I don't know if you can call it a government, but some kind of leadership inside Gaza from among the Gazans who reject Hamas, from among the Gazans who reject this violent resistance ideology and this idea of martyrdom, and that they are on a mission from birth to death to fight against Israel. We need to find these people, and they do exist, by the way. I know some of them. They do exist. And we saw in the past few months there were protests against Hamas led by these people. So we have an opportunity here. But for this opportunity of peace to happen, force or strength have to precede it. And this is what Israel is doing right now. Israel is doing the force and the strength needed to lay the ground for this long-lasting peace to exist. Of course, people don't like this, and people are criticizing Israel for doing this. But believe me, in, let's say, 20, 50 years from now, the people who will come after us and will look at our time and see what Israel did, they will say, yes, Israel did the right thing at the right time, because there was no other solution. All the other solutions will be just reinventing the wheel and leading to the same old failed results that we are paying its price now.
It's 2025. America's debt is over $37 trillion, and the dollar just had its worst crash since 1973. That puts your savings and your family's future at risk. That's why we trust Alpha Omega Gold, a company that stands unapologetically with Israel and supports Stand Tall Israel. Visit ao.gold/stand to claim your free precious metals wayfinder guide or call 1-855-426-4653 today. Protect your future before it's too late.